Good afternoon. Obviously, it's impossible to separate technology from regulation and vice versa, so it's with that in mind that we bring in Mark Pengelly of Risk Magazine. Mark recently sat down with SEC Chairman Mary Schapiro for a one-on-one interview. Mark, why don't you kind of tell us what were some of the most interesting takeaways from your interview with Ms. Schapiro?
Well, certainly, I think the number one most interesting takeaway for me is just how phenomenally busy the SEC is at the moment. Chairman Schapiro only actually joined the agency a month after the fallout from the Bernard Madoff scandal hit the airwaves. Obviously, that was very embarrassing for the SEC. There have also been allegations that SEC staff members have been caught looking at illicit material during the day on their work computers. And the SEC has also been criticised about its accounting. So she's doing a lot of work at the moment trying to reform that agency in light of those failings and others that were brought up during the financial crisis. Added to that, you've got the May 6 flash crash, and the SEC's been working very hard. It's banned stub quotes, it's been working with the exchanges and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority to impose the limit up, limit down rules. That work's also ongoing too. The SEC is doing continued work looking into dark pools, the role of algorithmic traders and high frequency trading, which is something I'm sure your readers would be particularly interested in as well. There's also the Dodd Frank Act, and the SEC has a very large role, along with the CFTC, in implementing these rules. There is concern in light of all of the tasks on the agency's plate that it won't have enough time to get through all the rules, doesn't have time to properly consider all the rules it's going through, and Chairman Schapiro alluded to a few of those. There's also some ongoing budget uncertainty. And she mentioned to me under the Dodd Frank Act, the SEC is charged with implementing over 100 rules and over 20 studies, so they really do have their hands full there.
That's quite a handful right there. So then, as the SEC tries to figure out how to implement Dodd Frank, what are you hearing? What are some of the greatest concerns that you are hearing right now?
Well, I think perhaps the most relevant concern for our readership are the rules pertaining to derivatives. The Dodd Frank Act looks to regulate derivatives trading in the US, perhaps for what some might argue is really the first time. It splits the derivatives market broadly into two categories: swaps and security-based swaps. Swaps is a much broader definition than security-based swaps. The SEC will be regulating security-based swaps, while the CFTC will be regulating the rest of the swaps market. Security-based swaps consist of derivatives that reference a single loan or security, or a very narrow basket of securities. One example might be a single name credit default swap, for example. For all derivatives, the Dodd Frank Act requires standard trades that are deemed standardised by regulators, to be cleared for a CCP and traded on a CEF. So, looking at those two parts of the derivatives market participants have been very carefully scrutinising the possible differences between the way that the CFTC and the SEC will implement the various requirements. One of the interesting ones that's cropped up is that the CFTC is only demanding that a swap execution facility for swaps, I apologise, I got that the wrong way around. The SEC is demanding that the CFTC is demanding that a request for quote be sent out to a minimum of 5 market participants on a CEF, while the SEC says you can continue to send it out to as many participants as you like, including just one if you're the quote requesting party. Now, from the outset of the Dodd Frank Act, the SEC and the CFTC have been working to try to harmonise the rules wherever they can. But when I asked Mary Schapiro about that point, she actually justified the difference in the rules and said that because these were different markets, they needed different mechanisms through which to trade, and that difference in products actually justified the difference in regulation there. In doing so, she also hinted that there might be other areas where the SEC and the CFTC would disagree. One of them is the block trade rules, where the CFTC has been very heavily criticised for perhaps subjecting too many trades to onerous transparency requirements. So it looks like perhaps there might be perhaps some good news for derivatives market participants coming from the SEC there.
Okay, very interesting. Mark's Q&A will appear in the May issue, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time, and we will link to some of his work that he's done with Risk Magazine and some of the, we did some piggybacking off of some of your stories. We'll link to those below. Until next week, have a good week.